The Threads of Fate by Larkey and Atlantean Astrology, a 5-part series. Chapter 1. Whispers of the Castle. In a distant land, long forgotten by the tongues of men, there stood a castle, perched high upon cliffs overlooking an endless expanse of misty valleys. This castle, with its towering spires and labyrinthine halls, was not like any other. Its stones were old, far older than the kingdom that once ruled from its heights, and there was something ancient, something alive within its walls. The boy who lived within the castle knew no other home. To him, the creaking of the floorboards, the soft murmur of the wind through the arched windows, and the shadows that danced in the firelight were as familiar as the beating of his own heart. He was alone in the great fortress, save for the objects that surrounded him, his clothes, his furniture, his luggage. These things had been with him as long as he could remember. They were more than mere possessions. They were, in some strange way, alive. On quiet nights, when the mist outside thickened and the world seemed to vanish beyond the castle walls, the boy would lie awake, listening. It was during these moments that the whispers came. They were faint at first, like the rustling of leaves in the distance. But as the boy grew older, the voices became clearer. They were not the voices of people, but of things that should not speak but did. The boy never questioned the castle's strangeness. To him, it was normal that the wardrobe in his room would creak open of its own accord when he needed clothes, or that the chair by the fire would shift slightly to offer him a more comfortable seat. The luggage at the foot of his bed would sometimes roll toward him, as though eager to be packed for a journey that never came. It wasn't until his 12th year that the boy began to notice something more, something deeper. There was a presence in the castle, one that seemed to watch him, to guide him, though it never revealed itself fully. And as the days grew shorter and the nights longer, the whispers became more insistent, as though the castle itself had secrets it wished to share. One evening, as the sun set behind the mountains and the sky darkened to a deep indigo, the boy stood at the window of his room, staring out into the fog. The wind howled outside, its mournful cry echoing through the empty corridors. He had always felt safe within the walls of the castle, but tonight there was an unsettling energy in the air, something that prickled at the edges of his awareness. He turned from the window, his eyes drawn to the wardrobe at the far end of the room. It stood tall and imposing, its dark wood gleaming faintly in the dim light of the fire. For as long as he could remember, that wardrobe had been a silent companion, always there, always open when he needed it. But tonight, it was different. The doors were closed, and a strange light seemed to pulse from within, casting eerie shadows on the floor. The boy hesitated. He had never feared the wardrobe before, but now something about it unnerved him. The light was not natural, not like the warm glow of the fire. It was cold, almost otherworldly, and it called to him, beckoning him closer. Slowly he crossed the room, his heart pounding in his chest. As he reached the wardrobe, the light flickered and dimmed, as though it sensed his approach. He placed his hand on the cool wood, feeling the thrum of energy beneath his palm. Then, with a soft creak, the doors swung open. Inside, hanging among his ordinary clothes, was a garment unlike any he had ever seen. It shimmered with a soft, ethereal glow, its fabric delicate yet impossibly strong. Threads of silver and gold intertwined along its seams, and as the boy reached out to touch it, a warmth spread through his hand, traveling up his arm and into his chest. Suddenly, the room seemed to tilt, and the boy staggered back, his vision swimming. The air grew thick, heavy with the weight of something ancient and powerful. He blinked, trying to steady himself, but the world around him had changed. The walls of the castle seemed to fade away, replaced by shadows and mist, and in the distance he could hear the faint murmur of voices, whispers, soft and insistent. "You have found the first," a voice said, though it was not a voice he recognized. It was deep, resonant, as though it came from the very stones of the castle itself. I was once whole, but now I am scattered. A piece of me remains in every corner of this place, waiting to be found. The boy's heart raced. He tried to speak, but no words came. The voice continued, its tone both sorrowful and commanding. This is no ordinary garment. In each thread there lies a fragment of a soul that once was whole but now lies in pieces. To understand, you must find them all. Only then will the truth be revealed. The boy stared at the glowing garment, his mind reeling. A soul? Threads? The words made no sense, and yet, deep within him, he felt a flicker of recognition, as though some part of him had always known that the castle, the objects, the whispers were all connected to something far greater than he could comprehend. The light around the garment began to fade, and the boy found himself standing once more in his room, the warmth of the fire on his skin. The wardrobe was closed, the strange garment hidden from view, but the words of the voice echoed in his mind. A soul scattered and hidden within the castle, pieces of a life woven into the very fabric of the things he had taken for granted. The boy's thoughts raced as he tried to make sense of it all. Could it be true? Could the enchanted objects that filled the castle, the luggage, the clothes, the furniture, hold fragments of something or someone? He turned and looked around the room, his eyes falling on the familiar objects that had always been there, comforting him in their quiet, mysterious way. But now they seemed different, alive in a way he had never fully understood before. One thing was certain. The boy could no longer ignore the whispers, the magic that surrounded him. He had to find the rest of the threads, to piece together the mystery of the castle and the soul that had been scattered within it. And so, with a deep breath and a heart full of questions, he took his first step on a journey that would lead him to the farthest corners of the castle and to the deepest corners of his own soul. The Threads of Faith by L.S. Larkey, Chapter 2, The Weight of Strength and Mercy. The air in the castle felt different the next morning. The usual stillness had been replaced by an almost imperceptible hum, as if the walls themselves were alive with quiet anticipation. The boy, standing at the window of his room, felt a weight pressing down on him, the enormity of what had been revealed the night before swirling in his mind. The voice, the garment, the threads, each fragment of the mystery was like a puzzle piece, and he knew that solving it would change everything. His gaze drifted to the wardrobe, now closed once again, its doors seeming to hide the secrets within. The boy approached slowly, hesitating for just a moment before pulling open the doors. The glowing garment was still there, as if waiting for him, its delicate threads pulsing faintly with an inner light. He reached out once more, his fingers brushing the fabric. This time there was no sudden shift in the room, no overwhelming wave of energy. Instead, there was a gentle warmth, as if the garment was whispering a secret only he could hear. The boy let his hand fall, turning to face the room. The whispers from the previous night still echoed in his mind. A soul scattered and hidden within the castle. He knew now that the castle was more than a collection of stone and mortar, more than just walls and furniture. It was a vessel, a keeper of something ancient and powerful. His eyes fell upon the leather-bound luggage at the foot of his bed. It had always been there, as far back as he could remember. Simple, unassuming, but sturdy and well-made. He had never thought much of it before, but now, after what had happened, he couldn't shake the feeling that the luggage, like the garment, held a piece of the mystery. Cautiously, the boy knelt before the luggage. He ran his hand along its worn leather surface, feeling the weight of time in its cracked edges. As his fingers traced the outline of the brass buckles, a strange sensation washed over him, a soft, almost imperceptible vibration like the hum of a distant melody. And then, just as it had with the garment, a voice spoke. "I am strength." The boy froze. The voice was different from the one he had heard the night before. Deeper, more commanding, and filled with a kind of raw energy that made his heart race. He pulled his hand back, but the luggage remained still, as though waiting for him to continue. I was forged in battle, in moments of courage and fear. I am the shield and the sword, the protector and the aggressor. I am strength, but I am also violence. The boy's breath caught in his throat. The words sent a chill down his spine. Strength and violence, two sides of the same coin, bound together in a way he had never considered. The luggage, once so ordinary, now seemed to pulse with an intensity he could not ignore. He pressed his hand to the leather once more, and the voice continued. To carry me is to carry the burden of bravery, but also the weight of destruction. I am a part of him, the one whose soul has been scattered, and now you must carry me too. The boy's heart pounded in his chest. A part of him, another piece of the puzzle. He had not imagined it. The threads, the voices, they were real. And the more he uncovered, the more he realized that the fragments of the soul scattered throughout the castle were not just ordinary pieces of magic. They were pieces of his father, who had died under strange and unexplained circumstances. Suddenly, the boy understood. The luggage, the garment, the objects around him, they had been more than possessions. They had been infused with the very essence of his father, each one holding a piece of his spirit, his personality. His mother, in her grief, must have woven these threads into the items to protect him, to ensure that his father's presence remained with him always. But why had she never told him? Why had she kept this secret? The boy stood, his mind racing. The first thread had been revealed. Strength, the courage to face fear, but also the violence that came with it. He felt a pull now, stronger than ever, urging him to find the other threads, to piece together the rest of his father's soul. He left his room, his steps echoing in the empty corridors of the castle. The whispers seemed louder now, more insistent, as though the very walls were guiding him. He passed through the grand hall, where long tapestries fluttered in the draught, and down winding staircases that led to the older, forgotten parts of the castle. These were places he had rarely visited, places where the air felt thick with age and secrets. At the far end of a dusty corridor, he came to a door he had never opened before. The wood was dark and weathered, its surface etched with strange, swirling patterns. The boy hesitated for only a moment before pushing it open. Inside, the room was dim, lit only by the faint light that filtered in through a narrow window. The air was cool, and the scent of old books and forgotten things filled his nose. And there, in the center of the room, stood an old mirror, tall and ornate, its frame carved with intricate designs of vines and flowers. The boy approached cautiously. He had never seen this mirror before, and yet it felt oddly familiar, as though it had always been waiting for him. He stood before it, his reflection staring back at him in the dim light. But as he gazed into the mirror, something strange began to happen. The surface of the glass shimmered, and for a brief moment the boy's reflection was not his own. Instead, he saw a figure, tall, broad-shouldered, and draped in a flowing cloak. The figure's face was obscured, but there was something unmistakably familiar about him. The boy gasped, stumbling back, his heart racing. The figure in the mirror faded, and his own reflection returned. But the boy knew what he had seen. It was his father. The mirror had shown him a glimpse of the man whose soul had been scattered across the castle. The voice of the luggage echoed in his mind. To carry me is to carry the burden of bravery, but also the weight of destruction. The boy swallowed hard, his pulse still racing. His father's strength, his courage had been passed down to him, but so had the darker side, the violence, the anger. He would need to find the balance between them, just as his father had once done. The mirror stood silent now, its surface calm and still. The boy reached out and touched the frame, feeling the cool metal beneath his fingers. There were more threads to find, more pieces of his father's soul to uncover. And he knew that each one would bring him closer to the truth, about his father, about the castle, and about himself. With a deep breath, the boy turned and left the room. The journey was far from over, but the first thread had been found. And with it, the whispers of the castle grew louder, guiding him toward the next piece of the puzzle. The boy wandered deeper into the castle, the weight of the first thread, strength, pressing lightly in his chest. But even as the whispers of the castle grew louder, urging him forward, he could feel a different kind of pull, softer, quieter, yet insistent. The castle was guiding him again, but this time it led him down a narrow staircase into a part of the castle he had never visited before. The air was cool, and the stone walls seemed older here, worn by time and silence. At the bottom of the staircase, the boy found himself in a small, dimly lit room. It was simple, unadorned, except for a single rocking chair sitting in the center of the room, gently swaying as though someone had just left it. The boy stepped closer, and as he did, the whispers seemed to fade, replaced by a soft, soothing voice. "I am Mercy." The boy stopped, his breath catching in his throat. The voice was gentle, yet filled with an aching sadness. It was different from the voice of strength. Where strength had been commanding and raw, Mercy was soft, full of compassion. "I am the balm that soothes the wounded, the hand that forgives." The boy approached the rocking chair, his heart pounding softly. The words seemed to wrap around him, filling the room with a sense of calm and understanding. The chair rocked gently, as though cradling the very essence of mercy. He reached out, brushing his fingers along the worn wood, and the voice spoke again. "To carry me is to carry the weight of sorrow and forgiveness. I'm a part of him, the one whose soul has been scattered. Your father carried me, but it was not always easy. To forgive is to heal, but it is also to bear the burden of every wound." The boy felt a lump rise in his throat. Mercy, another piece of his father. He could see it now. His father had been strong, yes, but there had also been a quiet sadness in him, a weight that he had carried alone, the weight of forgiveness, of showing compassion in the face of pain. The boy could feel that weight now, pressing against his chest, a soft but powerful reminder that mercy required strength of its own. He knelt beside the rocking chair, his hand resting on the armrest. A single thread, glowing faintly, appeared beneath his fingers. It was softer than the thread of strength, but no less important. Gently, the boy pulled the thread free, and as he held it, a sense of peace washed over him. He stood, the thread of mercy joining the thread of strength in his pocket. The whispers in the castle grew louder again, but this time they were softer, more harmonious, as though the castle itself acknowledged the balance between strength and mercy. The boy turned, leaving the room with a new understanding. His father had been a man of strength, but he had also been a man of mercy. And now, as the boy gathered these threads, these pieces of his father's soul, he knew that both were essential. Strength without mercy was cold, unyielding, but mercy without strength was fragile, unable to endure. Together, they formed the balance his father had carried in life, and now they were the balance the boy would carry forward. With a deep breath, the boy continued his journey. The castle had more secrets to reveal and more threads. Threads of Fate by Larkey Atlantean Astrology, a 5-part series. The castle's quiet murmur had grown to a chorus of whispers, as if every stone in the ancient structure had something to say. The boy walked through its winding halls, the weight of the threads already gathered, pressing lightly against his chest. Strength, mercy, two pieces of a soul, each bearing the burden of his father's past. But as the boy wandered deeper into the forgotten corridors of the castle, he knew that more awaited him. With each step, the whispers grew louder, pulling him toward a deeper truth. He found himself in a part of the castle that felt different from the rest. The air was cooler, as though the light of the world outside could not reach here. The stone walls seemed darker, worn by time and silence. Shadows flickered like living things, and ahead, a faint light glimmered from an open doorway, casting long, haunting shapes across the floor. At the threshold, the boy hesitated. He could feel it, the pull of another thread. It was here, waiting for him, as if the room itself held its breath. With a deep breath, he stepped inside. The room was small and circular, its walls bare except for the silver-framed mirror standing in the center. Its surface shimmered with an unnatural light, as if it held more than just a reflection. The boy approached cautiously, his own image staring back at him, yet something about it felt wrong. The reflection was not just showing his outward appearance, it seemed to peer into something deeper, something hidden beneath his skin. As he stood before the mirror, a voice, calm and steady, echoed from its depths. "I am foundation," the voice said, low and steady, "the ground upon which all else is built." The boy's heart quickened. Foundation? He had been searching for pieces of his father's soul, but this was something more. It was not just a thread. It was the very essence of what held everything together. "Look," the voice urged, "and see what lies within." The boy stared into the mirror, and the reflection began to change. Slowly, the image of himself melted away, replaced by another figure, tall, proud, draped in fine clothing. The figure's face was his own, yet twisted by arrogance, eyes gleaming with vanity. "Vanity," the voice whispered, its tone sharper now. "A foundation built on vanity is like a castle built on sand. It will crumble, and all within it will fall." The boy watched as the ground beneath the figure in the mirror began to tremble. Cracks spread like a web, and with a sudden violent shudder, the ground gave way. The proud figure stumbled, reaching out in desperation, but there was nothing to hold on to. The walls of its world collapsed, the foundation crumbling to dust beneath its feet. A cold chill ran down the boy's spine. The meaning was clear. Vanity, the pursuit of admiration, of outward appearances, could not hold the weight of a life. It was a weak foundation, one that would inevitably fall. The figure's world had shattered because it had been built on nothing but illusions. "Do you see?" the voice asked, its tone almost sorrowful now. "To build on vanity is to build on emptiness. When the time comes, there will be nothing left to hold you up." The boy nodded, his chest tight. He had seen people like this, those who lived only for the praise of others, who built their lives on appearances and shallow desires. Their foundations were hollow, and when the world turned against them, they had nothing to stand on. But the mirror was not finished with him. The image rippled again, and a new figure appeared, this one simpler, humbler. It stood tall, its clothes plain, its posture unassuming, but there was a quiet strength about it, a solidity that the boy recognized. This figure did not seek to be admired. It stood on its own, strong and unshaken by the chaos around it. "This," the voice said, softer now, "is a foundation built on honesty and integrity. It shall not fall, for it is rooted in truth." The boy felt warmth spread through him as he gazed at the figure. This was the foundation that mattered: truth, honesty, integrity. A life built on these things did not need the validation of others. It stood firm on its own. The ground beneath this figure was solid, and no matter what storm came, it would not be moved. "A foundation built on truth will endure," the voice continued, its tone resolute. "But a foundation built on lies, on vanity, will crumble. The choice is yours." As the boy looked into the mirror, the figure of his father appeared beside him. His father's face was calm, but there was a sadness in his eyes, a sadness that the boy had never understood until now. His father too had struggled with these truths. He had carried the weight of vanity at times, but he had also known the strength of truth. The boy's hand trembled as he reached out, his fingers brushing the cool surface of the mirror. A single thread appeared in the glass, glowing faintly. He pulled it free, warm and soft in his hand. This was foundation, the truth upon which everything else must stand. But before he could leave the room, the mirror darkened and another presence stirred. A figure stepped forward from the shadows, its face hidden beneath a heavy hood, its cloak billowing like smoke. The boy's heart quickened as the figure approached, cold and commanding, its presence filling the room. "I am justice," the figure said, its voice deep and resonant. "I am the balance that must be struck, the hand that delivers what is deserved." The boy felt a chill run through him. Justice. It was the next piece of his father's soul, but it was different from the others. Justice carried a weight that was colder, sharper. It was not soft like mercy or strong like foundation. It was something else entirely, unyielding, unflinching. The figure extended its hand, revealing a glowing thread. But before the boy could reach for it, the figure spoke again. "Do you understand what it means to judge?" the figure asked, its tone sharp yet thoughtful. "Justice is not about punishment. It is about balance. To deliver justice, you must understand, not condemn." The boy hesitated, his mind racing. He had always thought justice was about right and wrong, about making people answer for their actions. But now, standing before the figure, he realized that justice was more than consequences. "Justice is about seeing the whole picture," the figure continued. "To judge without understanding is cruelty. To condemn without knowing the heart of the one you judge is to fail them. True justice is about balance, about empathy, about seeing beyond the surface." The boy felt the weight of those words settle on him like a heavy cloak. Justice was not just about righting wrongs. It was about seeing the person behind the actions, about understanding their struggles, their pain. Without understanding, justice became hollow, a weapon of judgment rather than a tool of balance. The figure extended the thread once more, and this time the boy took it, feeling its cool weight in his hand. Justice was not as simple as he had thought. It was about balance, about seeing the truth in its entirety before deciding what was deserved. As he slipped the thread into his pocket, the figure in the mirror faded, leaving the boy alone once more. The lessons, however, stayed with him. Vanity would lead to ruin, but truth and honesty would build a foundation that could not be shaken. And justice, it was not about punishment. It was about understanding, about delivering balance with wisdom and empathy. The boy turned from the mirror, his heart heavy but filled with purpose. He had gathered more threads, more pieces of his father's soul, but there was still more to find. As he left the room, the whispers grew louder once again, urging him onward. The boy left the mirror room, the thread of justice heavy in his pocket, but even as he walked, the whispers grew softer, giving way to something else. A new presence, a new pull, deeper and more profound. The castle was guiding him again, but this time there was something different in the air, a feeling that both humbled and lifted him. He could sense the presence of something grand, something beyond the mortal experience, yet deeply rooted in it. He found himself in a long hallway, its walls lined with portraits of figures long forgotten, their faces etched with both sorrow and grace. The boy felt an undeniable pull toward the end of the hall, where a great door stood slightly ajar, allowing a faint light to spill through. With careful steps, he approached and pushed the door open. Inside was a grand chamber, its walls adorned with tapestries depicting scenes of breathtaking beauty. Great mountains, valleys full of flowers, and skies that seemed to stretch into eternity. At the center of the room stood a pedestal, and upon it a glowing orb, pulsing with a soft, radiant light. As the boy stepped forward, the air grew warmer, filled with a sense of awe and wonder. He knew that this was not just another room in the castle. This was a place of reverence, a place where something greater than himself awaited to be understood. And then the voice came. "I am Splendor." The boy stopped, his breath catching in his throat. The voice was both delicate and powerful, filling the room with a sense of majesty. It was not like the others. Where strength and justice had been commanding and raw, Splendor was refined, radiant, yet humbling. "To understand splendor is to understand the path you must walk," the voice continued, its tone both soothing and firm. "You were born at the bottom of the mountain, as all men are, and it is your journey to strive upward, to become more than what you were at birth." The boy listened, his heart pounding. He could see it now, the path of life as a great mountain, with every step forward a test, every challenge a way to grow stronger, wiser. Splendor was not something given. It was something earned through perseverance, through struggle, through the constant striving to become something greater. "Men are born at the base," the voice said, "with nothing but potential. It is up to you to rise, to climb, to grow, to become worthy of the splendor that awaits at the peak." The boy's mind raced as the voice continued, each word resonating deeply within him. He had always known that life was difficult, full of obstacles and challenges, But now he understood the purpose behind those struggles. Each trial was a step towards something greater, a journey towards splendor. "But you are not alone in this journey," the voice said, "for at the top of the mountain stands another." The boy's heart swelled as the voice spoke again, this time more softly, more reverently. "Women are born at the top of the mountain, for they embody the essence of beauty in the world. They are the splendor you strive for, the light at the peak that you must earn." The boy felt a warmth spread through him, not from the glow of the orb, but from the words themselves. He understood now. Women, like the one his father had loved, embodied something far greater than mere physical beauty. They were the keepers of splendor, the essence of what made life worth striving for. "It is not easy," the voice continued, "for women must guard their honor and their chastity, for they have everything to lose. You as men must earn them, for they are the splendor and beauty of the world, the reflection of the divine." The boy stood in silence, the weight of those words sinking in. He had never thought of it this way before, but now it all made sense. Women, born at the top, had to protect what they had been given, their beauty, their grace, their essence. And men, born at the bottom, had to climb, to strive, to prove themselves worthy of that splendor. "To climb the mountain is not just a journey of strength," the voice said, "it is a journey of honor. For as you rise, you must carry with you the understanding that splendor is not to be taken, but earned." The boy felt a sense of clarity wash over him. He had found strength, mercy, and justice, all pieces of his father's soul. But now, standing here, he understood that splendor and beauty were the ultimate goals of that journey. His father had known this, he had lived this, and now the boy was beginning to understand it as well. The orb on the pedestal pulsed with light, and from it a thread began to form, thin, delicate, and radiant. The boy reached out, and as his fingers touched the thread, he felt an overwhelming sense of peace, of purpose. This was not just another piece of his father's soul. This was the essence of what his father had been striving for, what he had been protecting. The boy took the thread of splendor, and as he did, the room seemed to brighten. The tapestries on the walls shimmered with new life. The mountains and valleys depicted within them filled with the light of understanding. The boy slipped the thread into his pocket alongside the others, and for the first time he felt whole, as though a missing piece had finally been found. But as the boy turned to leave the room, the voice spoke once more. "Remember this," it said, its tone soft but firm. "Splendor is not something you take. It is something you earn. It is the culmination of all you have learned, all you have fought for. And when you reach the top of the mountain, you will see that the splendor you sought was not in the world, but within yourself." The boy nodded, his heart full. He understood now. Splendor was not just about beauty or admiration, it was about the journey, about striving to become something greater than what you were, about earning the right to stand beside the splendor of the world. With a final glance at the glowing orb, the boy left the room, the weight of the threads now balanced within him. His journey was far from over, but with splendor and beauty now a part of him, he knew he was one step closer to understanding his father. Threads of Fate by Larkey and Atlantean Astrology, a 5-part series. Chapter 4. Knowledge and Understanding. The castle seemed to shift around him as the boy wandered its endless halls. The whispers, once faint and distant, had grown louder, filling the air with an urgency that made his heart race. The castle's stone walls seemed to close in, thick with tension, as though they too held secrets waiting to be uncovered. The boy knew that more threads awaited him, each one a piece of the mystery surrounding his father. He found himself walking through a narrow corridor, its walls lined with heavy tapestries that fluttered in a breeze he could not feel. The light was dim, casting long shadows across the floor, and the whispers echoed around him, urging him forward. The voices seemed different now, not merely guiding him, but pressing him towards something deeper, something that would challenge him. At the end of the corridor stood a door, smaller than the others, its wood dark and weathered, as though it had been there for centuries, forgotten by time. The boy hesitated, his hand resting on the handle, feeling a familiar pull from behind the door. This thread felt different, more intense than those he had discovered before. It was not simply a part of his father's soul. It was something more profound, something he needed to grasp fully before he could move forward. Taking a deep breath, the boy pushed the door open. Inside, the room was circular, its walls lined with shelves crammed with ancient books and scrolls. In the center stood a large wooden desk, old and worn, and behind it sat a high-backed chair. The air was thick with the scent of parchment and ink, a strange warmth radiating from the very walls. The boy stepped closer to the desk, his eyes drawn to a single open book lying in the center, its pages blank save for one line of shimmering text. As the boy gazed at the book, a voice filled the room, calm, contemplative, and steady. "I am knowledge." The boy's breath caught. He stepped toward the desk, his hand hovering over the open book. Though the text was written in a language he did not understand, the words seemed to pulse with meaning, a secret waiting to be uncovered. "I am the light that dispels darkness, the answer to the questions that linger in the shadows," the voice continued. "To seek me is to seek truth, but be warned. Truth is not always what you wish to find." The boy hesitated, his heart racing. He had always thought of knowledge as a gift, something to be cherished and pursued. But now, standing before this book, he felt an unfamiliar sense of foreboding. There was a weight to the knowledge this room held, and the boy wasn't sure he was ready to bear it. With a steady hand, he reached out and touched the page. Suddenly, a flood of images filled his mind. Flashes of his father standing tall and proud, his eyes filled with both wisdom and sorrow. The boy saw glimpses of battles fought, of decisions made in moments of great consequence. He saw his father holding the threads the boy now sought, weaving them into the very fabric of the castle itself. "Knowledge is power," the voice said, its tone unwavering. "But power comes with responsibility. Your father knew this well. He sought the truth, but in doing so, he discovered things that could not be undone." He turned to leave the room, but just as he reached the door, he heard another whisper. Softer this time, almost hesitant. "Wait." The boy paused, glancing back toward the desk. On the far shelf, hidden among the books and scrolls, was a small, simple box glowing faintly with a golden light. The boy approached it slowly, his heart pounding in his chest. He could feel the pull of the next thread, but this one felt different, more inviting, warmer, and full of insight. He lifted the box from the shelf, its weight surprisingly light in his hands. As he opened the lid, a soft glow filled the room, and a voice melodic and steady spoke directly to his mind. "I am understanding," the voice said. "I am the bridge between knowledge and wisdom, the light that transforms information into meaning." The boy's heart swelled at the sound of the voice. Understanding. It was not simply about knowing facts or gathering information. It was the deeper, more essential ability to see beyond the surface of things, to grasp the meaning behind the knowledge. "Knowledge without understanding is hollow," the voice continued. "Your father knew much, but it was his understanding that made him wise. To carry knowledge is one thing, but to know what it means, to see the truth beneath the surface, is the key to true power." The boy felt the weight of those words settle over him. His father had not only sought knowledge, he had sought to understand, to see the world not just as a collection of facts and figures, but as a complex web of meanings and truths. Without understanding, knowledge was empty, little more than a series of disconnected pieces. But with understanding, it became whole, became something real, something that could change the world. As he held the thread of understanding in his hand, The boy realized that this was what had made his father great. It wasn't just his pursuit of knowledge, it was his ability to understand what that knowledge meant, how it could be used, and how it could shape the lives of others. Slipping the thread of understanding into his pocket, the boy felt a profound sense of peace. He had found something essential here, something that would guide him through the rest of his journey. The castle seemed to acknowledge this as well, the whispers fading to a quiet hum, as though in recognition of the balance he had found between knowledge and understanding. With a final glance at the open book, the boy turned and left the room. He knew now that this journey wasn't just about gathering pieces of his father's soul. It was about understanding the deeper truths that lay beneath the surface of those fragments. The castle was no longer just a maze. It was a place of learning, a reflection of the lessons his father had once known, and the lessons the boy was now discovering for himself. But as the boy approached the grand staircase that led to the lower levels of the castle, he felt a new presence, a shadow that lingered at the edges of his mind, cold and distant. He knew what it was before the voice even spoke. "I am wisdom," the voice said, its tone deep and ancient. "I am the balance between light and dark, the knowledge that transcends understanding." The boy's breath caught in his throat. Wisdom, the final piece. The staircase before him seemed to stretch into darkness, its steps worn and uneven. The boy knew that the final thread awaited him at the bottom, but he also knew that wisdom was not an easy gift to receive. It came with its own burdens, its own responsibilities. Taking a deep breath, the boy descended the stairs, the weight of the threads in his pocket pulling him down, deeper into the heart of the castle. The storm was coming, and with it, the final revelation that would bring his father's soul to rest. The Threads of Fate by Larkey Atlantean Astrology, a 5-part series. Chapter 5, The Threads of Fate, the final thread. The boy descended the grand staircase, each step feeling like it was carrying him not just through the castle, but through time itself. The whispers that had once guided him now seemed distant, barely audible over the steady rhythm of his heartbeat. As he ventured deeper into the heart of the castle, the air grew colder and the stone walls pressed in, thick with the weight of untold secrets. At the bottom of the staircase, he found a hallway shrouded in darkness, the flickering light of old torches barely illuminating the path ahead. It was here that the boy felt it, an undeniable pull towards something far greater than a mere thread. This was not just another piece of his father's soul. This was the final truth, the culmination of everything he had learned and experienced. At the end of the hallway stood a door, larger and more imposing than the others he had encountered. Its surface was intricately carved, depicting scenes of life and death, light and darkness, creation and destruction, all woven together in an endless tapestry of existence. The boy hesitated, knowing that whatever lay beyond this door would not only reveal the final piece of his father's soul, but something far deeper. Taking a deep breath, he reached for the handle and pushed the door open. Inside, the room was vast and empty, its stone walls rising into the shadows above. At the center of the room stood a single pedestal, and upon it lay the last glowing thread. It pulsed with a soft, ethereal light, casting gentle shadows across the floor. The boy approached slowly, his footsteps echoing in the silence. He could feel the weight of this moment pressing upon him, the moment of revelation. As he reached out to take the thread, a voice, deep and resonant, filled the room. "I am wisdom." The boy froze. The voice was unlike any he had heard before. It carried with it the weight of eternity, of countless lifetimes lived, of experiences gathered and lessons learned. This was not just the voice of his father. It was the voice of something far greater. He could feel the immense power of this revelation coursing through him. The realization that after all the lifetimes lived, after all the knowledge gained and wisdom earned, his father had discovered that free will was not about endless choices. It was about discovering the singular truth that lay at the heart of existence. Free will, the voice said, is the means by which we find this truth. It allows us to explore, to choose, to make mistakes, and to learn. But in the end, all paths lead to one. There is only one truth, one way that leads to life. The boy's heart swelled with understanding. This was the ultimate wisdom, the realization that all the choices, all the journeys, all the lives lived were merely stepping stones toward one divine truth. Free will was not the destination. It was the means to uncovering the singular truth that bound all of creation together. I have found, the voice said, now soft and full of love, that the one truth is love. The one way is to walk in love, to embrace it fully, for it is love that leads to life eternal. All other paths are illusions, distractions from the truth that has always been. The boy's eyes filled with tears as he understood the magnitude of what his father, both his earthly father and his Father in heaven, had revealed. It wasn't just about gathering knowledge or even understanding. It was about embracing the one truth that surpassed all others, that love was the way, the truth, and the life. With a steady hand, the boy took the final thread of wisdom from the pedestal. As he held it, a profound sense of peace washed over him, filling him with the clarity that his father had sought for so long. The journey had not been about collecting fragments of his father's soul. It had been about discovering the truth that his father had found, that love is the ultimate wisdom, the path that leads to life. The room seemed to shift around him, the light growing brighter, the air warmer. He could feel the presence of his father more strongly now, not as a distant memory, but as a living, breathing part of him. His father had not been lost. He had been guiding the boy all along, leading him to this moment of revelation. There is only one way, the voice said gently, and that way is love. The boy slipped the final thread into his pocket, alongside the others. He could feel the weight of it settle within him, not as a burden, but as a gift that would guide him for the rest of his life. The storm that had been gathering throughout his journey had passed, and with it, the boy knew that his father's soul, both earthly and divine, had been restored. As the boy turned to leave the room, he felt a deep sense of fulfillment. He had uncovered the ultimate truth, not just about his father, but about life itself. And as he stepped out into the light of the world beyond, he knew that his journey was only just beginning. He would walk in the way of love, the one truth that leads to life, and in doing so, he would honor the wisdom his father had passed down to him. For the boy now understood that there was only one way, one truth, and one life, and that truth was love. Hear, O Israel, the Lord our God, the Lord is one. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your strength. Deuteronomy 6:4-5.